Welcome to A.U.M Ask Us Marketing. We are recording live. That means that while this show is not edited, if you send in a question, we will not be answering live on the video, but we will be answering in the comments. I'm your host, Callie Fedosinko of Callie Collective, a digital marketing agency designed to build relationships between financial advisors and their target audience through data-driven content, websites, and advertising. Our episode today is brought to you by the FPA, otherwise known as the Financial Planning Association. The FPA is a great resource center providing education, support, and networking opportunities for financial advisors like you. So, the holidays are almost here. And if you're planning a client appreciation event, then this episode is for you. Today, we're talking with Angela and Elyse from Event Advisors about how you can strategize your events and measure their success beyond attendance numbers. So please welcome back, because they've been here before, Angela and Elyse.
Hello.
Hi, Callie. Thanks for having us.
Yes, very excited to have you. What is today? I don't even know. Thursday?
Almost. It doesn't matter. It's always good to see you.
Exactly. Okay. Question for you. Advisors often aim to host events that build trust with their clients. How do you guys ensure an event is designed to foster personal connections and maintain authenticity rather than feeling transactional?
So we are big fans of having goals for your events. So there's a lot of ways to do this, but we'll give you three. One is host events that your clients want, not events that you want for your clients or you think your clients want. You're talking about personal connections and maintaining authenticity.
Yeah.
An event is an opportunity to connect. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but connect. Yeah. Don't lecture. Nobody likes that. It's events are for deepening relationships. They create opportunities to get to know the clients, the attendees on a more personal and authentic level. So that should be a goal. And like I said, there's goals, and Angela's going to give an example of something that we've done that kind of fits into that space.
And as Elyse said, you want to inject the goal of building connections into your entire planning, your execution, and most importantly, the follow-up. You want to build, we all say this, it's overused, but it's really important. Know, like, trust. When you're trying to foster the relationships of clients who are entrusting their assets to you, you want to build those relationships. Again, don't lecture, build that relationship. So an example, briefly, is we had a client that wanted to do a client appreciation event like another advisor that he saw under the broker deal. He goes, oh, I want to do the big event just like they did. Well, when we dug into what their clients wanted, first of all, their clients were all over the state of California. So it didn't make sense for them. So when we pulled back the curtain and looked at what the clients really wanted, they didn't want to travel far. They wanted to be in their area. So we designed small, intimate 10-person dinners in Northern California, a couple in Southern California, where they still would have the chance to build those connections in an environment that the ideal client wanted to attend. And they attended. In fact, one that they did in Northern California, the restaurant actually had to ask them to leave. It was getting too late. They were having a great time because they were fostering those relationships.
Right. I feel like what you guys just said goes right in line with what we're always preaching at Callie Collective, is knowing your audience. So knowing what they want, and then knowing what your goal is, and then the steps to get you to that goal. So yeah, right in line. So for advisors who are organizing an event, how can they be measuring success beyond attendance numbers? Like, what should they focus on to see lasting impact on those relationships and lead generation?
Well, first of all, and I think the example Angela gave is a really good reminder. We hear this a lot from clients. Using attendance as a success measurement. Don't do it. Don't do it. Because would you rather have 50 unengaged people or 10 super engaged people?
Yeah.
So we don't really talk in those terms.
Right.
We'd say the best way to measure success is to see if you've achieved your goals. So when you're setting your goals, using that in the pre-planning, in your content, in your follow-up, making sure that they're sort of like those bumpers, right? Like when you're bowling, you know, your success is going to be how well did you achieve those goals as they relate to that event. We have a philosophy we use with our clients called ROM, which is return on the moment. Think about this event as a moment, a rock, if you will, in your marketing stream, and you're setting those goals for that rock. You're going to measure that success based on that rock, because the marketing stream really is your client's journey. And the idea that one event is going to fill up your bucket and do all of those things is just, it's not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah.
So attendance is not great. ROM, set your goals, keep those in mind as you're doing your planning, and then go back and make sure you look at those and say, like, how did this do?
What kind of goals should you be setting for an event?
Angela, do you want to talk? I think the best way is to give an example.
Yeah.
So we just did a COI event with a client, and I think Angela can share about that.
Absolutely. I actually wanted to give a tip going back to what Elyse was talking about as far as attendance and what you were talking about, Callie, because one of the things we hear is, I can't get them to attend, or the numbers weren't as high as I wanted them to be. So if you're doing a smaller event, let's say this 10-person dinner that we just talked about, schedules always play into this. So the advisor actually called his top clients that he really wanted there and worked the date around everyone's schedule. And he had almost 100% attendance from those that he wanted there.
Right.
So that's a big thing too, is calling and say, hey, we're planning this dinner. We're hoping it's going to be November 14th. Does that work for your schedule? And they say yes or no, and then kind of look at what the numbers are. Because, you know, if you're only going to invite 10, but because the schedules, you only have 2, then it's not really where you wanted to be. So involve them in the planning.
I love
that.
Now,
going back to goals, we did a COI event for a client of ours, and their goal was to build the relationships and reinforce the relationships with their strategic partnerships. So rather than just having yet another golf outing or an appreciation event at the country club, we help them create goals to make it stand out to their partnerships. You know, it started from the pre-event planning. We worked with them to request logos of all the attendees and partners that were coming. And again, they did the same thing that I just mentioned. They talked to the partners, said, we're looking to plan this great client appreciation. This is the date we're looking for. Put it on your calendar. We want to make sure you're there. And they had 100%, almost 100% attendance of those that they wanted there because they reached out ahead of time. So the pre-event planning, requesting logos from those partners, and those were displayed on the screen as they walked in. They also created or requested that they do a 2 to 3 minute live intro. So when they all gathered around the dinner table, everybody was prepared to be able to talk a little bit about them and their relationship with the client. Of course, photos were taken, and those photos were repurposed to really solidify what happened at the event, what we call positive emotional memory. That was a great time. We loved that. And then after the event, implementing the goals didn't stop. They pre-planned during the event process that after the event, they were going to reach out and say, you know, was there anybody else at the event that you had a connection with, that you talked to, that you'd like us to make an introduction to outside of the event, and foster those inner network connections? And then, excuse me, they also created post-meeting lunches and meetings right after that. So it went from the very beginning all the way through the end. And that's how they kept the goals throughout the event planning process.
Mm-hmm.
And if I may add,
Yes.
in our strategy conversations with them, we said, why are you doing this? You know,
Yeah.
Why is a really powerful question, as we know.
Right.
Because from that, we were able to develop this goal of really reinforcing the partnership. This advisor really is very selective about his strategic partners, and wants, let's face it, he wants it to work. And and so we were trying to say, well, maybe you need to kind of show how it works both ways. So one of your goals for this event is everything you do is based on partnership. It doesn't have to be like a huge mission statement. It doesn't have to be anything like that. But it was like, one of our goals is to reinforce partnership. Great. Yeah. So then we brainstormed all these different ways that we can reinforce partnership.
Right. I love that. And, you know, talking about networking. So financial advisors often aim to grow assets under management through networking events. What are some ways they can engage potential high value clients effectively at such events without feeling salesy?
It's a really simple answer, Callie. Don't sell. I mean, like, really, not to be contrite, but we're talking about this and saying it's about authenticity. It's about deepening relationships. It's about building relationships. Like, put yourself in that person's position. Swear, no lie. I went to a networking event a couple years ago, and there was this man who had like a button, like a lapel, but it wasn't a lapel button. It was a like the size of a really yummy cookie. And you know, yes, I was like, it got me attention, but I'm like, oh, like, a little creepy. I'd rather have a cookie.
Yeah. What did it say?
You know what? I don't even remember.
You know what it reminds me of is my mom used to sell Christmas around the world, and she would wear a button that said, "Ask me about Christmas around the world."
It probably was something like that, but just the fact that I'm imagining the one your mom had was probably like this big.
Yeah.
It wasn't the size of my face. So the answer to that question is, think about these networking events. Think about these conferences. Think about all of these moments, right? Yeah. These opportunities. As Angela said, it's talking about building know, like, trust. Don't go into the event. And again, we talk with clients about this a lot. Like, you're going to a networking event. What are your goals? We did a whole session at Fearless Summit last year about having a conference goal. But like, what's your goal? And if your goal is, I want to get like 3 people's contact information, do that from an authentic point of view. Oh my gosh, you have kids that are Boy Scouts. I have kids that are Boy Scouts.
Right.
Maybe we could share Scout information, like finding those authentic ways to connect. That the networking event isn't about the direct ROI. I spent this much. I need to bring in this much AUM. It's icky. Don't do it.
Absolutely.
So tell us more about what you just said, return on the investment versus return on the moment.
So we recognize that the viewers today are money people, right? It's financial. And ROI is an amazing measuring tool for a lot of things, not events, not about connections, because, you know, you can't really put money on that. Right. So we also recognize that we all need data to determine, is this a good investment of my time? Is this a good investment of my financial resources? So we developed A.U.M to say you still want to measure a return, but you want the return to actually be focused on that exchange, that event moment.
Okay.
And the best way to do that is, again, have a goal, integrate that, and we have a whole, what we call return on the moment wheel that talks about like the planning. of events and integrate those goals in every one of the steps in your ROM plan, that's then how you can determine success and value.
You know, and Callie, to bring that, to put a little more color on that, because we know that, like Elyse said, the advisors, your number of people. So how do you get your head around just measuring the moment? So think about it like we were just saying, you're in your client's shoes. You don't want to be sold. So if you're at an event or in a meeting or at an educational workshop, and you're developing that relationship with your advisor, they're getting to know you as a person and you're getting to know them as a person. Well, we're talking about money. You're going to feel more comfortable with your assets with them. Think about going and buying a car. You know, someone comes to you right as you get on the lot. Okay, I've got this great deal. You're not going to say great. Well, most people won't say great. Sign me up. I'm driving it up. Right, don't even need to get in. Here's $50,000. You know, that doesn't usually happen. And so when you create what we call the positive emotional memory, which is part of the return on the moment, they warm and fuzzy and they're sticky and they're not really thinking about leaving you. And if they were thinking about leaving you, then they're developing more of that know, like, trust. So look at it in terms of their assets. If they have assets in more than one place, there's a high likelihood that they will move those assets over. If they are in a personal situation and somebody that they know or love is going through a moment, a divorce or widowed or whatever it might be, and they have questions or something's happened, they say, you know, you should talk to my financial advisor. I went through that with them, or I've heard them talk about that. I know they'd be happy to give you some advice. Again, non-salesy. And then the other piece that we have all been talking about is this great wealth transfer. If you as a client don't have that know, like, trust with your advisor, it feels icky when they say, can we meet your kids? Or we want to meet your beneficiaries. It becomes natural. You want them to meet your kids. You want to make that introduction because you know, like, and trust them. And that is all. That's not going to happen with a once a year review meeting for 15 minutes. It's just not. You're going to build that relationship. And that's what we're talking about under return on the moment. And we can give a couple more examples on how you do that within the logistics of an event, but that's putting some color on it, I think.
Okay. Okay, let's talk a little bit about what if someone's goal is to, they want to be shown as an expert, right? So they do an educational event because they want to be seen as a thought leader. How can they ensure that their content is relevant and valuable? And what are some ways that they won't market their services, but they can make connections during that event?
So I feel like a lot of the questions you're asking, we kind of contradict the response. The first part of that is know your ideal client, know what is important to them. If you want to be an expert in college planning and college financing, but your ideal client and the space that you live in is empty nesters, it really doesn't matter, right? So that's sort of that first part. Know your ideal client, know your target audience. The other thing, and if I may, I'm going to give a little plug here. We are big fans of what we call expert-led events. And what we mean by that is it's not about the advisor being the expert. It's about the advisor being the friend, the conduit. So on October 9th, we are doing a webinar called Be the Hero. And we are partnering with a woman named Kathy Sikorsky, who is a lawyer who talks about long-term care and elder care and how caregivers can kind of protect their assets. And she's the type of person that an advisor could bring in to talk about these topics. And then the advisor is the host. The advisor is the hero. The advisor is there to be able to answer some questions in a future meeting.
Right.
Oh, what do you know? You need some long-term care or whatever. That works there.
Mm-hmm.
So we love the idea that the advisor is the hero. Now, if an advisor wants to be a thought leader, perhaps they become an expert working with their COIs.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It then also then opens up this networking, this authenticity, these personal connections. Those are some of the suggestions we give our clients.
Right. Now, regarding Be the Hero webinar, can somebody find that on your website?
Yes, they can.
Perfect. So if you're watching, you can go to the link below my face and be able to sign up for this webinar.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about 2024, 2025 and beyond, and the hybrid environment we find ourselves in. Many events have a virtual or digital component. What are some creative ways advisors can engage both in-person and online audiences, making sure that the experience feels seamless no matter if we're in real life or virtual?
So I don't know if your viewers have done any background to say, like, who are Elyse and Angela? Like, what are they doing here?
Yeah.
Angela has spent a number of years working in advisory firms. I come from the sports and entertainment world. So this whole idea of strategic events versus I just do what my coach tells me to do, setting the stage. As soon as I hear hybrid event, I think of one thing. And that is, I think of sporting events. Because if you think about it, right, and everyone's like, I don't know how to do this.
Yeah.
You've got a football game, right? There's an experience that's happening for those people who are inside the stadium watching it in person. But there's a whole separate experience for the person who's listening on the radio, watching the live stream, watching it on TV, whatever their video of choice is. And we think about that as a separate experience. The content is the same, right?
Right. Yeah.
There's 22 guys on the field, usually guys. That's the content, but how it's being delivered and how it's being absorbed is different. So why is that? One of the things that we talk to people about taking from this model is treating your live stream like we're doing right here. Like we've got an MC, we've got a host, we've got a person who's giving us insight and, you know, is having sponsorships and doing all those things, creating that experience for the virtual attendee. They're there, but they're having their own experience. You know, there's nothing worse than, you know, we didn't know what we didn't know, right? And about 4 years ago. And the old, like, let's throw the video up on a Zoom and just hope that people stay. And then there's a person who's sitting at a tech table, like wildly going, I've got questions. Like, again, don't do that.
Yeah, we've come a long ways.
We have, and there's a lot of tech that is out there that can help us do that. So, you know, the other piece, again, quality, quantity numbers. If you're going to do a hybrid event, you could do it in a ballroom, but you could also do it in a conference room, right? It's more intimate. You're maybe not spending as much there, where you can maybe spend a little more on your tech. There's lots of ways to do that.
I know, Angela, we've worked together doing some virtual events, which I felt like went very well. Whiskey tasting. I remember that was one.
But you know what, Callie, this all goes back to kind of button everything up. It goes back to what the ideal client and attendee wants. So if an advisor is hosting an economic summit and wants to live stream it for virtual guests, before you spend all that money on the tech, make sure you have an audience that's going to, besides 2 people that are going, that want that. And on the flip side, if you have an audience that really just wants to tune in after dinner, you know, at a right time on their, they'll do that. Don't spend the money on a venue and the food. So you really need to know what your audience wants. The virtual whiskey tasting that we did, the audience wanted that. So we do that. You know, going back to the COI event that we worked with a little while ago, the first thing the advisor said is, I want to have a cigar rolling table. And we said, okay, what percentage of your strategic partners smoke cigars? Do you know if they smoke cigars? Are they female? Are they male? And digging into that, he goes, nope, they all smoke cigars. I've smoked with all of them. Great. You may have a cigar rolling table. So it's knowing your audience and using tech to have a bigger reach when it's appropriate.
Okay, as we're coming close to the close, a question for you from all of this is, I'm hearing you got to know what your audience wants, and completely agree. How do you suggest an advisor finds that out? Are they asking all their clients with a survey? Are they bringing it up in meetings? What do you suggest for an advisor who wants to level up their events?
Yes to all of the above. So however you are interacting with your clients, ask them. So make that a line item in your review meetings, do a survey, ask them at the events. We're looking to do more events like this. What are you interested in? Maybe if you haven't started, sometimes we've had advisors actually have a brunch or a happy hour with that intent, and they have a flip chart. Yeah, we're going to do more events. What does everybody want? And write it down. Ask. Whenever you have an interaction with them, ask or pick up the phone.
And last question for you. How can people reach you if they want some assistance with event planning and strategizing? I should say event strategizing. I think that fits better.
Exactly. Because we do both, but we don't plan unless we strategize.
Yeah.
So we are both on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And Event Advisors is on LinkedIn. You put up our website, event-advisors.net, and there's a contact page on there. And if they want to go right to email, it's hello@eventadvisors.net. We're pretty easy to find.
Just for clarification, the email hello@event-advisors.net, correct?
Correct.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you for putting that out, Kelly.
This was very informative, and I think this is a really great place for people to start going into the holiday planning season and really considering where to start.
And don't wait, venues are booking up.
Yes,
exactly.
Yes. So thank you so much, both of you,
Kelly,
for your insights and sharing with us.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be here and to share.
Yes. Hey, it's Callie. Of course, you've just been watching me for the last 28 minutes. You can leave a review of what you think of A.U.M. at the QR code above. And if you are curious what your strengths are in marketing and what your next steps should be, take our 2-minute quiz at the QR code below. And lastly, join us next Monday to talk about how you can publish your book in 6